Ever pondered about what drives the left-wing ideology that has influenced so many societies and political landscapes globally? Today, we're setting the stage for an enlightening journey into the heart of leftism. This exploration will take us to the roots of this ideology, tracing its evolution through centuries and its impact in shaping the world as we know it. So prepare to set aside preconceptions and dive into the depths of understanding. Stay tuned as we unravel the intricate history of left-wing ideology. The roots of left-wing ideology can be traced back to the French Revolution. This tumultuous period in history, spanning from 1789 to 1799, was a time of immense societal upheaval and change. It was during this momentous decade that the seeds of leftism were sown and began to sprout. At its core, the French Revolution was a rebellion against the oppressive rule of the monarchy. The people, tired of being governed by the whims of the nobility, sought to establish a society where power was in the hands of the many, not the few. This desire for a more egalitarian society, one where everyone was given equal opportunities and rights, was a fundamental principle that would later become the cornerstone of left-wing ideology. In addition to demanding social equality, the revolutionaries also advocated for human rights, another key tenet of leftism. They believed that every individual, regardless of their social status or wealth, should be entitled to certain inalienable rights. These rights, which included freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and the right to a fair trial, were enshrined in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, a document that was heavily influenced by the Enlightenment philosophers of the time. However, it wasn't just the fight for social equality and human rights that linked the French Revolution to leftism. The revolutionaries also sought to redistribute wealth and power, arguing that the resources of a society should benefit all its members, not just the privileged few. This belief in economic justice and the reduction of wealth disparities is another fundamental pillar of left-wing ideology. The French Revolution was a time of great change and upheaval, but it was also a time of hope and possibility. The ideas and principles that were born during this period have had a profound impact on the world, shaping political thought and influencing societal structures for centuries to come. Thus, the French Revolution set the stage for the birth of left-wing ideology. It laid the foundation for a political philosophy that continues to champion social equality, human rights, and economic justice to this day. From the 18th century onwards, left-wing ideology began to evolve and take various forms. As the centuries rolled on, the ideological landscape of the left began to shift and diversify. The French Revolution, with its rallying cry of liberty, equality, fraternity, became a beacon of inspiration for left-leaning thinkers around the world. It was during this period that the concepts of socialism and communism began to take root. In the mid-19th century, two German philosophers, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, published the Communist Manifesto. This work offered a critical analysis of capitalism and proposed a radical alternative, a classless society where the means of production are owned by the workers. This idea resonated with the working classes who were living through the harsh realities of the Industrial Revolution. As we moved into the 20th century, the left-wing ideology splintered into various political movements, each with its own interpretation of what a just society should look like. We saw the rise of social democracy in the Nordic countries, where the focus was on creating a balance between free market capitalism and strong social safety nets. This model aimed to combine the best of both worlds, the efficiency of capitalism with the fairness of socialism. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, more radical forms of leftism took hold. The Bolshevik Revolution in Russia led to the establishment of the world's first communist state, while Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution sought to create a classless society in China. Despite their differences, these movements and theories shared a common belief in the importance of social justice, economic equality, and workers' rights. They challenged the status quo and sought to create a more equitable society where wealth and power are not concentrated in the hands of a few. These movements and theories played a pivotal role in shaping the modern understanding of left-wing ideology. As we continue to grapple with the complexities of our globalized world, the insights and critiques offered by these left-wing ideologies remain as relevant as ever. The 20th century witnessed a further expansion of left-wing ideology. As we moved into this new era, the face of leftism was reshaped once more, responding to the challenges and demands of the time. The first significant development was the rise of labor movements. Across the globe, workers began to unite, demanding fair wages, safe working conditions, and the right to organize. The left-wing ideology, with its emphasis on equality and justice, provided a powerful framework for these movements. It argued for the redistribution of wealth and power from the few to the many, resonating with workers who felt exploited by unchecked capitalism. From the coal mines of England to the automobile factories of Detroit, labor movements became a defining feature of the 20th century, and they owed much of their success to the influence of left-wing ideology. Meanwhile, leftism also began to intersect with the civil rights movement. Advocates for racial, gender, and sexual equality found allies in left-wing circles. The idea that all individuals, regardless of their identity, deserved equal rights and opportunities was a natural extension of the left's commitment to fairness and justice. By aligning with these movements, the left helped expand the conversation about equality, challenging societal norms and pushing for a more inclusive world. Finally, the 20th century saw the establishment of welfare states in many countries. This was a major victory for left-wing ideology, which had long championed the idea that society has a responsibility to care for its most vulnerable members. Welfare states aimed to provide a safety net, offering support in areas such as healthcare, education, and unemployment. This was a radical shift in the way governments functioned, moving away from a purely laissez-faire approach towards a more interventionist style. Thus, left-wing ideology significantly shaped the political and social landscape of the 20th century. It empowered labor movements, influenced civil rights, and led to the creation of welfare states. The impact of these developments is still felt today, underscoring the enduring relevance of leftism in our world. In the present day, left-wing ideology continues to evolve and adapt to new challenges. Leftism, as we know it today, remains a broad spectrum of political philosophies. But there are certain trends we can observe that are shaping the landscape of modern leftism. One of these trends is the heightened focus on environmental justice. With the escalating climate crisis, left-wing thinkers and activists are advocating for systemic changes to mitigate the impacts of climate change. They argue for a transition to renewable energy, stricter environmental regulations, and a just transition for workers in industries that heavily contribute to carbon emissions. This is not just about saving the planet, it's about creating a society where everyone has equitable access to a healthy environment. Another trend in modern leftism is the emphasis on income inequality. The gap between the richest and the poorest has been growing wider in many parts of the world. Leftists are calling for policies like wealth taxes, minimum wage increases, and stronger labor rights to redistribute wealth more equitably. Social inclusivity is also at the heart of modern left-wing ideology. Leftists strive for a society where everyone, irrespective of their race, gender, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status, can participate fully and equally. They are pushing for laws and practices that protect the rights of marginalized groups and enable them to live free from discrimination. In a world where the status quo is often characterized by power imbalances and systemic injustice, the left-wing ideology seeks to challenge and change these structures. It's not about leaning towards one side for the sake of it, but about envisioning a world that is fair, inclusive, and sustainable. It's about recognizing that our society's challenges are interconnected, and that solutions must be holistic and intersectional. As we move forward, left-wing ideology continues to be a driving force for change in our society. It continues to push boundaries, question established norms, and fight for a world that values every individual's rights and dignity. To sum up, the journey of left-wing ideology is a rich and complex one. The story begins with the origins of left-wing ideology, rooted in the desire for social equality and the fight against oppressive systems. It's a tale as old as human civilization itself, woven into the fabric of societies around the globe. From there, we traced leftism's evolution through centuries, observing its transformation and adaptation in response to changing social, economic, and political landscapes. We saw how the principles of social justice, equality, and workers' rights have remained at its core, even as its strategies and tactics have morphed and diversified. The 20th century was a crucial period for leftism, as it grappled with the challenges of industrialization, globalization, and the rise of capitalist economies. We saw left-wing ideology manifest in various forms, from social democracies to communist regimes, each with its own unique interpretation and implementation of left-wing principles. In the modern era, leftism continues to evolve, influenced by issues like climate change, income inequality, and racial justice. Today's left-wing movements are diverse and multifaceted, reflecting the complexity of the world we live in. Understanding left-wing ideology is key to appreciating its role in shaping our world. But remember, ideologies are not static. They evolve and adapt, just like societies do.